Hello, hey, thanks for joining us. It is Anime Parlay. We are Sans. Two of our crewmates, they are living their lives, doing something fun for the Memorial Day weekend. But the show must go on. It's your boy Killer Cam,
Yeah.
and I'll let my boy introduce himself.
What up, y'all? Peace and blessings. It's your boy, Mr. Wild and Free.
Hey, let's get it. All right, so I got to be honest. Pretty solid chapter. I mean, we waited a little bit for it in the sense of, obviously everybody who was making YouTube content for One Piece was just waiting
Yeah.
on bated breath for these scanulations to come out. It came out a little bit later than normal. So obviously we didn't get to post it this morning, but, it is
But
what it
worth the
is.
wait. Worth
We
the wait.
It was worth the wait. And thankfully we don't have a break next week. I think what caused the break was like Golden Week or something like that. I don't really know. I don't know the kind of litany and kind of specifics of Japanese holidays and how it affects production, but that doesn't really matter. We're here to talk about chapter 1149 of One Piece. And okay, first off, Mr. Waterfree, let me get your thoughts. What do you think, dude?
I was hype. There were a lot of amazing moments in this chapter. Some things that I was kind of frustrated by, but not too much. Like more so of just like personal gripes that I wish I would have seen. But overall, I was really excited about how Scopper showed up. I was expecting us to get a little bit more of a preview as to what he did, but that's all right. We definitely got some interesting developments there. He was kind of in and out in a way, right? Where
Yeah,
we got to
literally.
see him show up in a really great way and also taken out in the same, within one or two chapters. But overall, the thing with Gunko is just, oh, that is great. And I mean, for those that know, I love Brooke. Brooke is an amazing character, and he's just been getting a lot of love lately, and I'm just here for it. I'm really excited to see more of the lore behind his story and how he knows Gunko and how all of this stuff is going to unfold. But yeah, I actually did kind of call a little of what happened with Gunko this chapter, so that's something that excited me.
What do you feel like you called?
I felt like Gunko was going to turn, right? Like I was like, yeah, I don't know what it is, but something about it just made me feel like she was going to turn. I mean, it's something that had popped up in previous conversations before, and I know others have spoken about it on other channels, but like it was just one of those random moments at the end of our last episode where we were like, yeah, what do we think is going to happen next episode? And for whatever reason, I was like, yeah, I think she's going to, we might see her flip the script. And I think we saw that, right? Like it's not fully there, but it is, right? Like it was there, but it was kind of taken away from us with a very important moment in this chapter, right? And I think that that's going to be up in the air as to whether or not we actually get to see her kind of reformed, but we will see.
Okay. I'm gonna go in on Gumko for a second, and it's just because I like Gunko as a character. I like the design. I like the power set, all that other kind of stuff. I will say this: like we are getting a lot of importance put on her, and just I'm gonna
Yeah.
just say this. Obviously, it's still like pretty early within the recording. Hopefully, this isn't too long. But obviously, if you guys are watching this, spoiler alert, catch up. We're talking about details. We're not recapping it or anything like that. I'll probably go through like
Yeah.
general notes, but we're just driving straight in. So Gunko, I don't know. I mean, to be honest, man, like she's fine. And what I mean when I say that is like I think everyone sort of kind of saw that she was being treated differently than the other gods knights. Like she was ruthless, but
Hmm.
there was this kind of I mean, obviously, there's a kind of trope of like, oh, she's a pretty girl in One Piece, so how evil can she really be?
Yeah.
But I don't know, dude. I mean, here's my problem. One, I want Oda just to commit without having this kind of like backstory. It's like, oh, she's brainwashed and she doesn't realize like who she actually is. She has this other kind of persona. Oh, she's also being possessed by Emu. It's just one of those things where it's like either have her be evil and she's like a femme fatale or something like that, or don't, right? And it's fine if she's not, but this kind of like how this setup, like I guess I'm just kind of not feeling it. And the reason why is
Mm.
because she has done really truly irredeemable things like just this
Oh, for
chapter
sure.
like putting like an arrow-shaped lance, basically, and
Yeah.
like had the intent to kill Colin. I'm very much of the mindset where like I don't really care if you're possessed. I don't really care if like you're brainwashed. It's like you're still a character that was going to do that. I just can't see you being fully redeemed to be like some kind of ally. And I know that we'll probably get some tragic backstory with her and Brooke. I'm just saying this
Yeah.
now. I think that like Brooke was her bodyguard. I mean, in the flashback, I know people are thinking like,
An
"Oh, it's
interesting
her
take.
dad." I don't think it's her dad. She doesn't say dad. She says Brooke specifically his name, and she specifically says, or he specifically says, basically, "I have a dream of being a pirate." And we know what Brooke's original kind of role or job was before he joined the. I think it's like it's not the Rumba Pirates, but it's like a musical based kind of pirate crew.
Thought it was that.
No, Rumba Pirates, I think, is Scratchman Apu's pirate
Okay,
crew.
okay.
So either way, it's like
Brooks' pirate
like
crew. Yeah.
Brooks' pirate crew. They were a troupe of like singers. I mean, they were singers. Sorry,
Like
singers, but, like,
musicians
musicians,
and-
performers. Like the flashback in which we get his backstory and the way he dies is like they get infected with this sickness. They're out floating at sea. They can't. I mean, basically, like their captain is like sick and all this other kind of stuff. And they basically kind of do this Titanic moment where they play each other off, right? Like one last kind of performance as they all drop dead. Basically, that's the whole thing, right? So we know that he joined this like pirate crew effectively of musicians purposefully.
Yeah.
And that like basically, his main thing was like, was once a, sorry, can you hear that, dude?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to cut
What
this
up,
part.
dog?
Sorry, guys.
It's
I'm
all
gonna cut because like I have to take care of this. This is really sorry.
Nah,
This
sorry,
is really
people
annoying.
love dogs.
I hate cutting in the middle of the shit, but I have to fucking like do this. Hold on. One
Yeah,
second.
it's all good.
Okay, sorry about that. That was a weird cut. Howling dog. Wanted to make sure that wasn't in the recording, so we're jumping right back in. But
No worries. To confirm though, it was the Rumbar Pirates.
oh, you did confirm.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so anyways, like Brooke is a part of this like musicians troupe / pirate crew. That's obviously what he leaves to go join. Before that, we knew that he was like some kind of guards person, like for a kingdom. And obviously he has like a reference to the Gods Knights. I don't think obviously he was one, but he knew of them. So like, I think there's an argument to be made that he was a part of some kingdom, probably a part of some kind of royal guard. Maybe this person, right, Gunko, whoever she was, if that actually is her name and it hasn't been changed, maybe she was like a part of like either the nobility or maybe a part of like the staff in some way. I mean, it seems like obviously this is One Piece. She probably was nobility in some sort. And he was the court kind of musician / guardsman. Obviously, he was a swordsman. So I don't know. I think there's this kind of idea of like, they had a special bond. It seems like, the way she's being portrayed in flashbacks, she's sad, probably, classic One Piece backstory, ignored, mistreated, whatever, right? And found effectively a special relationship with Brooke. And then obviously Brooke then leaves and then goes on his merry way into what will eventually become his death and rebirth, right? So
For sure. I can get down with that. The one thing I'll say is, potentially it was the case that she found solace or peace with Brooke due to her father's passing or something of that effect, right? Prior to.
Yes.
And so I could see something like that if Brooke is indeed not her father, because if he is, that's
I don't
insane.
think so.
That's not something that I would be expecting. I agree with your theory.
Yeah.
But if it actually turns out that Brooke was the father, I'm like, whoa, that's a big lore drop. And that has major implications for the story moving forward as far as like Brooke's participation in the Straw Hats and also Gunko's, right? Because we're still in that limbo space of wondering, are we actually going to get another Straw Hat, right? Like ever since Wano, when we thought Yamato was going to join and then she's like, nah, I'm gonna hang back, there was always that lingering, well, I feel like we're supposed to get one more Straw Hat. Who is it gonna be? And then it was Vegapunk and Lilith. And then like now this whole situation with Gunko, if it turns out that she is actually Brooke's daughter, that's heavy points towards her potentially becoming a Straw Hat.
I feel you. I don't think it's going to happen for a variety of reasons, mainly just because like, if there's one thing that like we've really needed to do, in One Piece, it is to slow
Yeah.
down the introduction of new characters. Oda has a
I
lot of
yeah
people on the crew.
yeah
Not all of them are well characterized enough. I mean, we talked about this before, where
for
Brook
sure.
is kind of now the clutch player, kind of stealing moments from Sanji, right? And
Mm-hmm.
Jinbei, when he's alone with Luffy, kind of, shadows at least Zoro's role, which is to
Zoro.
be kind of
Yeah.
like an older, confidant, advisor kind of figure,
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Strategy and like wisdom, that kind of
Like,
thing.
yeah, like I'm glad. It's funny that there's a meme that's going around, like where basically it's like the meme where like the cartoon guy is like putting his arm over the other cartoon guy's shoulder, and it's kind of like that, like
Yeah.
let me tell you how it really is, and it's Usopp,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And it's like you
Oh,
thought this was
priceless.
your like Elbaf was basically your arc, and then it's Brook putting his
Yeah.
hand over him. I mean, I think it's
That's
true.
funny.
I mean, it's one of those things where it's
Yeah.
like I think everybody was kind of expecting, okay, it's got to be Usopp.
Mm.
This is his shot. He's been talking about
It's
this
his
for a
time to
while.
shine.
He's one of the core members of the Straw Hats, but I mean, obviously, we're getting Brook lore in like major Brook lore, right?
Major folklore. Yeah.
And it's one of those kind of things where, like, I don't know, I hate to be this kind of like misanthrope, but like, there is kind of an issue with the way in which certain characters have been core characters have been kind of sidelined or forgotten about in favor of developing new characters. And I think to some degree, like all of that
Heavily.
is important, right? Because you still need like Brooke has been getting this moment, like these moments, because he's introduced. We get to Sabaody Archipelago. The crew is basically split apart, right? And then we get
Mm-hmm.
no more like feeling and kind of camaraderie and kind of development with Brooke until basically the post time skip where we meet
Yeah.
him again in Fishman. So like you had to kind of
Yeah.
put that work in somewhere, and I get it. But I wish that Oda would do more of a two-hander where it's like Hokai Island is going to be a Sanji focus. Obviously, Luffy's going to be like the undercurrent of that. And if there is like a Straw Hat that's there, in this case it was Brooke, we're going to develop him a little bit, right? Or in the case of, say, Egghead, right? It's going to be, this is going to be
Yeah.
Frankie. And then maybe below that is going to be like Sanji gets a little bit of action or whatever because he's on like
Yeah.
a Cyborg Island or whatever. And then obviously Luffy's kind of under that. But
Yeah.
the characters that seem to be getting focus are kind of like random a little bit, right? Like,
Actually, yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
And I feel like Oda is almost at this point it feels like an intentional subversion, right? Where it's like if you think about Whole Cake, that was like, okay, yeah, this should be a major moment for Sanji, I guess, right? And it kind of was, but it kind of wasn't. Like it was somewhat underwhelming in regards
the
to
whole
Sanji.
cake
Like
plot,
it was
like, ugh, don't
yeah,
even start on
like
that.
as far as his development there, I feel like it was underwhelming. Yeah, there was a lot of story around his character, but Brooke was the MVP in my opinion, right? Like that moment with Big Mom like usurped almost everything that Sanji did
Well, he
other
had
than
two.
him.
Brooke has two
Right.
moments. He gets the like road
The poneglyph
rubbings.
rubbings, yep.
Then he
And
is
then
the
he
person
smashed
to
it, yep.
smash. I mean, it didn't do anything, but like smash the
Yeah,
photo
yeah.
of Mother Caramel. Like
Yes,
it's both
for
kind of
sure.
surprising moments in which there's chaos happening and he's kind of moving in the background to like get something done. And then specifically when like Big Mom picks him up because he enters her chambers like alone. And this is, keep in mind, this is like our first introduction of like at least a new world emperor, right? And what they can do, particularly in their prime, because we see Whitebeard, but Whitebeard's like obviously infirm, and we see Shanks, and Shanks doesn't even fight. But like
Yeah.
Big Mom, we're at that point in time, we're like terrified of her. It's like, what can she do?
For
She's
sure.
like got indestructible skin. We have like she can basically just take people's life force at will.
Yeah.
And Brooke wasn't even afraid of her. So that, shout out to Brooke in that moment.
Shout out to Brooke. But so to that point, right? Like we had a subversion of what we were expecting to be the primary character of development for the arc, right? And then
Yeah.
we get Wano, and we absolutely felt like that was going to be Zoro, and then it kind of wasn't, where it's like, wow, like there's so much history and lore behind Zoro and how he's, likely from Wano, right? Or his
Yeah.
heritage at least. And so we were thinking we would get some of those familial moments or at least recognition of his lineage while in Wano, and we never really got it. We got like a confirmation in an SBS or something like that after the fact, right? And then
I hate that, by
Sanji
the
actually
way.
had a lot of development in Wano, right? Like he put on the Germa suit. He actually got his kind of cyber
Well, let me just say something real
Android
quick, dude.
upgrades. Yeah.
Because like you're hitting on an extremely poignant point, which is why are we doing all these pickups of like arcs and storylines, right? Like to your point, the moment for Sanji to like kind of make basically kind of have his moment where he recognizes his own identity, that it is distinct from his family, and that he is his own person. And like, even though they've rejected him, he's content with who he is, right? That moment was in Whole Kick. Like, I know you needed to
It
give
was
him a power up.
absolutely okay.
Like,
Yeah.
I know you just needed to give him a power
Yeah.
up in basically preparation for Wano.
Yeah.
But I kind of wish that power up just happened in Whole Cake because it would have made that arc more complete
Yep.
than to carry it over into
Yeah.
Wano. And to your point, take away from Zoro, who like his family ancestry is there. It's a place where like
Yeah.
everyone is a not everybody literally, but like I mean, it should be kind of this heralded place of swordsmen, right?
Yes. Yes.
And
Absolutely.
I mean, you're absolutely. I mean, like doing this kind of SBS thing, which I think the frequency of that, particularly in this like post time skip era, where like plot holes or like serious questions about like the direction of the story and like key players and stuff like that, it's all just kind of getting hand waved away in these SBSs. And like, I guess I'm not really a fan of that. I mean, even like the case of who fed Luffy and Egghead? Oh, it was Kizaru.
That
It's
was
like
such a major point. And why didn't we get more of that?
I think it's because it was a plot hole. And I honestly think Oda was just like, oh, Kizaru did it. But it's like, even people who are analyzing Kizaru, and by the way, if you look, and we'll do a deep dive in Egghead, but like if you look at that particular arc, his character arc, and you try to kind of piece out like, okay, well, what is his motivation? What is he doing? Like he's kind of conflicting or whatever. It is so contradictory and confusing because he has these moments where he's like, oh, I'm so ashamed of myself. I can't believe I'm like fighting my friend. I've just killed my best friend, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then he's right back into the action, like fight. It's just like, it is so schizophrenic. And then when you have like, why would he do that to like save Luffy? I mean, it's one thing if you show us that and it's like, okay, it leans into he is conflicted and he doesn't know what he's doing. He's just kind of going with his immediate impulse, which again kind of contradicts the idea of him being this kind of slave to the world government. He's just slave to his orders, right?
You know,
you get what I'm saying? It's just like that's a plot hole. Let's just call that a plot hole. Oda hand waves it away. He just throws it out there, and like if that is too integral of like a plot point to not include within the text or the anime. Like show it in the anime, but we don't even get in the anime.
Facts. Well, we don't know yet because it's not at that point just yet. I do feel like we have a couple more episodes before that.
They better
moment is
animate
revealed.
that. They better
I
animate
hope
that.
they animate that. There needs to at least be a light flicker, right? When Luffy gets food. If we even get that, it'll be a good day, right? But man, you just brought up a really good point, and I want to emphasize something that has previously been talked about in the community, and we've talked about it before, especially when we were referencing Sanji, and technically Zoro too, right? Like through these characters, Oda has a representation of himself in these characters. And as you were talking about Kizaru, I was like, wow, like there is probably a large part of Oda's own reflections on not just justice, but in the terms of how he needs to show up in the call and response of his own duties, right? And so it's super fascinating because as you were talking about him, I was thinking about, wow, like these are likely conflicts that Oda himself has to deal with, and he is trying to reconcile within the development of this story, right? And so even when we're talking about him going back and making these retcons or these very important plot points as waved away side notes in an SBS, right? Like that kind of shows that same kind of conflict and uncertain justice that Kizaru has, right? Where it's like, okay, well, we kind of didn't even get to see Kizaru show up in that moment to actually assist Luffy, so we don't even really know where he stands. And at the same time, that's like a metacognition, like a meta interpretation of what Oda has been doing with some of these plot points and kind of putting them off to the side in these SBSs. So I just found that to be really fascinating as it pertains to the ways that Oda might be imbuing some of his own challenges and turmoils and conflicts within these characters. So that was something I wanted to mention about Kizaru.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair point. I guess if we re-encounter Kizaru, who we will, if he hasn't changed in some way,
Yeah.
I'm going to be very, very, very disappointed. Let's just say that. Because we know that the Marines themselves, right, are going to reach ahead with what they can withstand in terms of their own interpretations of justice and what the world government has planned for the world, right? I mean, even just the celestial dragons, it's like, how can you abide by that, right? Like, how can you feel like that is some sort of justice where, clearly they just operate within their own rules and they kill people for no reason. Like, Grand Line Review actually mentioned this, that like the person who's attacking Mary Joie could be Sakazuki. I don't think so. I mean, maybe, right? It's possible. I don't think so.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong, but
Oh, yeah, because they were saying, like, he has the little sword tattoo or something like that.
I mean,
I think I saw something about
I
that.
think that's like a throwaway kind of design piece. I don't think that's actually meant to signify sword because, again, like
That's tough if it
Sakazuki's a
was,
bad.
yeah.
He killed Ace. I don't think there's any redemption for his character, and I don't think Sakazuki at this point randomly would go and attack the Celestial Dragon specifically unless he saw something that was like, we know Fujitora like put his own eyes out because of the world. Like the rot of the world that he saw, right? And maybe it was Mary Joie, even though we see him in Mary Joie later. But he's fighting Greenwood, right? So it's like...
Right, exactly. He's fighting for his own sense of
justice. So it's like, it would make sense if like, Fujitora had Sakazuki's powers and like, because that would make sense in terms of, like, seriously, it would make sense in terms of like, if he had fire powers or something like that and it led to basically him turning away from the world government, that would make sense because we've seen his character arc gradually get there, particularly with his interaction with Luffy, where he recognizes like there are pirates who have like truly just hearts, right? So
absolutely,
seeing that from Sakazuki doesn't really make any sense because it's like, dude, like you've done terrible things. So I mean, I can't really imagine you trying to hold the moral high ground against the Celestial Dragons at this point. It just doesn't make any sense.
I mean, I feel you on that.
Like, I was going to say that makes more sense if it was like Sabo, but we'll see. I don't think
Sabo,
so.
Fair, yeah.
I don't think so because they were just there, but we'll see.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I don't think.
And to bring up Fujitora has the meteors, so potentially he could have called down a meteor to set things on fire.
His powers are so broken, by the way, dude. But also, it's
very
like,
broken.
How do you not kill yourself doing stuff like that? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like seriously, because like when he did that,
I
mean, Doflamingo was the person who like destroyed the meteor. It's like, what would you do? You know what I mean? Like, what would you do for your, like, using your gravity powers? Like, what would you do in that situation? But anyways,
I wonder if he has, like, anti-gravity powers. That would be super interesting, like an awakening.
I want to see
an
more
amazing thing.
Okay, all right, so.
For sure.
Let's
jump back to the other point.
Yeah, go ahead and make your point, and then I'm going to jump back and then we'll recap and we'll make points throughout, because I do have some notes that I want to go through, but go ahead.
Oh, for sure. So here's the way to bring it back full circle, because you were just talking about whether or not like you believe Sakazuki has it within him to have a redemption arc, right? Like it's just hard to fathom somebody who has done something so wrong to be, absolved of those quote unquote sins, right? And I think that is a beautiful thing to tell in a story, right? And it's rare. It's not something that we get to see often. And I don't think we've seen it at all.
I know what you're talking about. You're pointing this back to Gunko. Yeah. I just don't know if we've seen any character who has done this level. Because the thing about Sakazuki is he killed Ace. Not only did he kill Ace, he killed his own people. Not only did he kill his own people, he killed like all of the scholars of Ohara. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's like this dude has done. It's not just irredeemable things, but it's irreparable things. You cannot take that stuff back because those people are dead. In the cases of like say Crocodile, we haven't seen him kill anybody. So you can sort and, keep in mind, Crocodile is still kind of like an anti-hero at best, right? He's not like a hero, right? But you can kind of make the argument of like, okay, well, Crocodile kind of, he paid for it. Obviously Luffy, you know, basically kind of meted out justice to him. He was in prison in Impel
Yeah.
Down for a while. He ends up redeeming himself, by first trying to take out Whitebeard, but then defending him and ultimately defending Luffy, right? Because he does.
Yeah,
And he defends
facts.
Ace as well.
Facts.
So it's like he's done these like really heroic things. So I mean, I think it's clear that Crocodile is a redeemed antihero. But again, he never went beyond that red line of like actually killing like a major character, right? And even
sure.
like even ironically, Pell, speaking of One Piece characters that never die, Pell is still still alive and kicking. So I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I mean,
But
Gunko's
we
a
also-
girl. She's pretty. Like I'm sure
She's
you're
a
right.
girl. She's pretty. Oda
She
loves
will be
those,
redeemed. It'll just be
Yeah.
like, oh, her memory was erased. She was basically kind of brainwashed into this new identity, and she doesn't know what she's doing.
Exactly.
Whatever.
Exactly. That's where I was
Whatever.
getting at. It's like,
Yes.
especially because of that major reveal at the end of the chapter, right?
Well, she does run to
where
Brooke. She
we
gets her
see-
memory back.
She gets her memory back, and she instantly snaps out of that killer instinct kind of Gunko that we
Yes.
were growing to believe.
Yes.
And so I really do think that she was entranced in some way to be that kind of version of herself where she is malicious and has this killing intent. And to your point, we haven't seen her kill off, well, specifically a major character, right? We do see in future sight she would have done it, but that's different than having actually done it. And so that's why I think that there is room for redemption for Gunko.
That's true. I mean, I guess what I would say is like, I don't think any major character in Elbaf is going to die personally, but if this library is destroyed permanently, regardless, she will have been involved, and that's going to be a real hard thing to reconcile. So I actually think the library is going to get saved, but that will be the only way. It's like you can't have any characters die, and that library cannot be destroyed if we're going to redeem Gunko, at least in my opinion.
Okay, that's fair. Here's you said if they're going to redeem Gunko, right?
Yes.
And you said no major characters can die. Here's another interesting possibility or theory.
Sure.
What if it is Gunko that has to die in this arc? Because, I mean, her lore is so deep and heavy, and, like, let's just say the implications of her as a character are so profound that it weighs on Brooke's convictions with the Straw Hats and all of these kinds of things. And then we also see that she has been effectively possessed by Emu, right? What if it's her that has to die this, arc? But through her death, right, we see that internally she was this good individual that just ultimately was led astray and was possessed and had been turned to do all of these evil things. And what if it is her will that holds back Emu enough in the end to allow the Straw Hats to overcome in this particular arc? I would love to see even that, right?
I mean, I definitely think that's possible. One thing I just looked up as you were talking is like, how old is Brooke again? Brooke's like 80-something years old. That's one.
Yeah, he's pretty old.
So it's like, it begs the question. It's like, okay, well, how old was he when he knew this girl? How old is this girl? Right?
Yeah.
He was separated from his body in the Florian Triangle. I just looked it up for 50 years.
Right,
Which
is
means
why
that
his body is
Gunko-
decomposed.
Yes, but but what does that mean for Gunko? Because he knew her when he was alive. So now it's like, okay, well, Gunko has to be immortal then for her to have survived, like still looking like a young woman for this long. You get what I'm saying? So like it I think it does lend itself to this idea of like, what are the God's Knight's powers? How long do they live for? What entails their immortality? Because a lot of people have had questions where it's like, are they actually immortal because they still age? Like, we don't really know. I mean, well, I think at the very least they age very slowly, right? So Gunko, I don't know. It's. I think Oda really has thrown this kind of grenade in terms of lore, and we'll see if it all connects.
Yeah.
I'm going to be very critical of that because
I mean, I'm sure it will. I'm not too critical
we'll
of the
see. We'll
aging
see.
thing.
I mean, because the thing
reason
is
why
like,
I'm not critical. Go ahead.
yeah. Well, I was going to say like, what we'll probably get is I didn't recognize you because I knew you when you were a kid, and now you're an adult, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, the question is, why wouldn't Brooke recognize her? You get what I'm saying? Particularly if they had a close relationship. Particularly where it is like, I'm not saying it's implied to be like a father-daughter-esque kind of relationship, but let's just say like
Yeah.
they're close, right? Like
I mean, to be
whatever.
fair, she does have a mask on.
She does, but it's the eyes. The eyes are too specific. And then, whether it's her hair, whatever. I mean, we'll see what
For
Oda
sure.
writes for Brooke. But I am going to get very annoyed if we get like another kind of lame where it's like Sabo's like, oh man, I had amnesia. And like, I just didn't remember for anything. And also
Yeah.
Ace didn't recognize, like, I don't know. Anyways, so we'll see what happens with that. I'm sure it will be fine. But I think every One Piece fan is looking very closely at all the details to see like, does this track?
Yeah,
And I think
for
it's
sure.
too early to say no. But I think there are a lot of questions in relation to how come he didn't recognize her? Like, how old is she supposed to be? And, ultimately the details of their backstory. But I
Yeah.
want to jump back in. Well, sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Oh, last thing I was gonna say there
Yeah.
is well, I was gonna mention like with Gunko and the whole immortality thing and the age thing. Really, I just think that that's something instilled by Emu, right? Like because we saw Saturn perish the way that he did, where it was like Emu extracted their powers from him. I think that they are just enabled with immortality only when Emu has granted them that power, right? And so I think that that gives credence to Summers being as old as he is, Gunko being as young as she is, right? Any of these God's Knights can obtain the power of immortality through Emu when it's bestowed upon them. And then it's, it lasts for however long they are in service of the God's Knights, right? But they can join at any particular age. And I think that that would answer the question of the aging with the immortality.
Yeah, I gotta be honest, dude. Like, and this will be the last thing I say on Emu, but like, I really don't like Emu. And not
I
because of
think that's
like,
the point,
oh,
right?
they're a bad person or whatever, like the ultimate evil in this world. Like, I just don't think the story needed this like super villain. I mean, it's the
I
same
agree. I agree
thing
with that.
with like Naruto and
No,
Kaguya. You know what I
that's
mean? It's
exactly
like,
what I was thinking
why are
about.
we
Yep.
doing this again? Like, did we not
Yeah.
learn anything from that? Like,
We did not need it.
we need a real, and I would even make the same argument about like Ichigo and Yuha Bach. It's like
That was a bit of a
we
stretch too, yeah, I guess.
we have really well plotted out villains. Blackbeard, that's your guy.
Yeah,
That's your guy.
right.
Right
Right.
now, you already got him. You don't need
Yeah.
this like extra super, next level demonic force. You know what I mean? It's just like,
Yeah.
can we stop with that? Like, Kaguya legitimately ruined Naruto. I'm just
That's how
gonna
I
put
feel
that
about
out
it.
there. It was completely
Sorry,
unnecessary.
y'all.
It felt random as hell. Like the whole backstory of like, what was it? I forget
Like the
the
Byakugan,
like, well,
the
just the black
lineage.
black Zetsu. Black
Oh, yeah,
Zetsu
yeah,
being
that
responsible
thing.
for like I was just like, why? Why?
Yeah.
Why did we do that? We didn't need that. We don't need Emu. We really
Yeah.
don't. You could just have the God's Knights by themselves as like maybe a God's Knight commander or something like that is like the big baddie or whatever. But like you didn't
Not
need
even.
this like
Yeah.
ultra villain that's like again like
Yeah.
the power system that is being introduced. Right, where it's like they're immortal because we've introduced advanced conqueror sake and we just need something above that. It just
Yeah.
feels unnecessary and so endgame.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
didn't even know Emu existed until, I mean, I don't know the exact arc, but I want to say it's like after Wano. You know what I mean? It's like, why?
I mean, I feel like you're probably right about
You know
that
what I mean?
part.
Like,
I
because
think
we
that
get
there
introduced to
was
Emu
some.
when they're like looking at the giant straw hat, which I mean, we'll see what happens with that. We have to assume it's
Yeah.
maybe Joy Boys, but like
Something like that.
or something like that. But it's like the giant straw hat and looking at pictures of like Vivi and Luffy and like I think
Yeah.
Shirahoshi was maybe one of the pictures. It's like,
Yeah.
can we? I know it's too late, but I really wish we didn't have Emu. It's so unnecessary.
Yeah.
And it, to be honest, it really downplays Blackbeard. I'm gonna put that
Here's
out there.
I agree that it downplays Blackbeard, but here's where I will say, I will accept everything that Emo is and has had to offer to the One Piece series if and only if their power is actually a devil fruit, right?
Yes.
Like, if it's that, I can fully embrace and accept that, right? If it is something completely separate than the devil fruit power system and hockey and all of that, then that's where it's going to feel like a Kaguya situation in Naruto, where it's like this out of the blue, throwing in the monkey wrench, kind of completely changing the narrative that we have kind of built up until this point. Like, that's when it's going to feel like that, because Madara was an excellent final villain, right? Like, we really didn't need anything
And
more
so well plotted out, because people have been
So well
talking about
plotted out.
Madara for forever. Like,
Right.
we had been talking
Right.
about Hashirama and Madara.
Right.
To
And
to
we
re-
had
yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And we had the subversion already with freaking
Obito.
what's his Obito, right? Like, we had the subversion from Madara, oh no, it's actually Obito, to actually getting Madara.
Yes.
That was enough. We didn't need something else on top of that, right?
Yes.
So if that is the case with Naruto and Imu, like, I feel you, like, Imu was a late game kind of thing that was a monkey wrench kind of thrown out of the blue.
Yes.
I'll accept it if it's devil fruit power related.
Yes.
And I'll accept it if we still get some kind of meaningful final arc with Blackbeard, right? Like, because I feel like Blackbeard has been built up for so long, and Imu is now just kind of usurping his position in the story.
Yes.
And it's just a very weird kind of thing to reconcile with what we have grown to adapt to at this point in One Piece. And I think that, to your point, this would have been amazing, right? Like, if we were to keep it grounded in that world of pirates. Like, there's already so much of the lore and the history of the One Piece, and even with Nika, right? Like, we've talked about Sun God Nika. They mentioned there's supposed to be like a dark god, which is Blackbeard, right? Supposedly, right? There's supposed to be the rain god or the forest god. Like, we have all of these different elements we could play with, right? And I'm hoping maybe that means Imu is one of those pieces where the lore was already kind of drawing them in. But right now, it just feels like Imu is still very separate from everything other than like this dark figure appearing in the mural, right? Where it's like, okay, well, outside of that,
You know what it is? It's very Japanese RPG. You know what I mean?
Yes,
Like, it's
that
like very
is-
Final
yes.
Fantasy, where it's like, you're playing
Very
Kingdom
true.
Hearts or something, and it's like, okay, the final boss is like Ansem or something like that. Oh,
Right.
wait, it's actually like this next form. Oh, wait, then there's this other form. It's like,
facts.
you've already done the groundwork throughout the story for Blackbeard. Everybody wants to see the showdown between Luffy and Blackbeard. You've literally created a parallel dark version of the Straw Hats, even like philosophically, motivationally, for the Blackbeard Pirates. Like, they don't really seem to use hockey. They're obviously unscrupulous about gaining power. They'll recruit from the worst dregs of society with Impel Down. They'll steal and kill people for devil fruits, right?
I think they're using hockey, but I agree with
I mean, I'm
everything
sure they
else.
use hockey as well, but like, I don't think we're going to
Yeah.
see, hopefully, any of them using Conqueror's hockey, because it would kind of defeat the point of the
Blackbeard, but
the mere kind of element of like like Luffy basically gains power through sheer force of will, right? And effectively his ability to make allies, versus Blackbeard, who does it through like cunning, trickery, cheating, whatever you want to call it. So
for sure.
you have a very interesting binary. Then you throw Emu on top. And again, I'll just say this. Here's the only way, at least in my opinion, that Emu can work. Emu needs to be a human with maybe the original devil fruit that allows them to have this like insane amount of power, because this is well beyond like the scope of what we've seen to be a devil fruit, right?
I like that.
You're giving powers, you're giving immortality. This is crazy. But like,
Yeah.
if it was the original devil fruit, okay. If that particular power, right, is what led them to live so long, okay. If they were a human, okay. We need to see a flashback backstory, and I'm not saying a sympathetic one. I'm just talking about like, if you're
Yeah.
creating this like ultimate villain,
Context.
we need to understand them. So if they were like evil or something like that, or became evil, or needed to gain power, because right now we just have like this ultimate evil figure whose motivation is unclear other than to maintain power and dominance. that's just not that interesting. So again, like I'm really hoping that like whatever Oda has planned for Emu, maybe we'll get a little bit more of that within this particular arc, and we'll get an introduction of Luffy and Emu vis-a-vis Gunko's body, where they get to interact, and that is established as a threat that the Straw Hats are aware of. Because right now, I don't know, it's just it's giving Kaguya.
Very much so.
Yes,
very much so.
Okay, let's get back into the chapter. Okay, so obviously Scopper cuts Summers to pieces, which is very interesting. I thought that was pretty cool.
Loved that. Cut him down and kept it moving.
Yeah, kind of weird that Scopper is like, sorry, not Scopper. Summers is still alive. Like I thought that was kind of interesting. You know what I mean? Like he literally says "ouch." So
yeah.
I mean, I know we're never gonna get a character death that's like that brutal. So obviously it's like, okay, you're cutting up like a body that will eventually reconstitute in some way. But I just thought that was interesting, right? It's like,
I mean, I think that
like a zombie almost.
Yeah. And it
go ahead.
speaks to, I think it speaks more towards what Scopper's solution is for fighting these immortals, right? Because in that instance, we see like, oh, like this is some kind of temporary refrain, right? Like if it is hockey, if it is some form of concentrated, intentional conqueror's hockey, then it's Scopper imposing his will through his slash to say, okay, this body part, like I'm going to hold back your ability to reconstitute yourself, right?
Yes.
And if that is the case, it's a temporary thing, and Summers will eventually heal again.
Well, there's no blood either.
He is.
There's blood.
Was there
There's blood with the
like
hand, but I feel like we didn't see any blood with the body. To be honest, dude, I think when this gets animated, it's going to be like some goopy black substance or something. Like literally, when it gets animated, I think that's what it's going to be. It's going to be like some goopy black substance or whatever. I mean, separated.
I don't know. The reason why
I don't think it's going to look like blood.
I don't know. And the reason why I say I don't know is because in not the latest episode, but the previous episode. Oh no, it might have been the latest episode actually.
You're talking about the 500 stars?
Yes, Bonnie stabbed Saturn, and it was real blood. It was red. So I'm interested to see what
we
happens.
are going to see Saturn get reconstituted soon, and it'll be through hopefully like the same animation style that will eventually be done with the Gods Knights. But I think you're right. I think we'll see soon enough just kind of how they treat that. One thing that I will say is like I went back and I reread Scopper's attacks. I want to say he's using maybe not advanced Conqueror's Haki, but Conqueror's Haki. But it's so hard to tell, like everything hockey related sometimes, where like there's black lightning. You get what I'm saying? I'm like,
and
to me that is kind of the signature of Conqueror's Haki. But there have been times before we've seen Zoro do that, and he's just using armament hockey. So it's one of those things where I'm like, because ultimately we're all trying to figure out, okay, how is he able to actually attack and to harm these Gods Knights and disable their ability to regenerate?
Yes.
It's weird that Summers looks at his hand and is confused, but then isn't confused when he's like cut into pieces. You get what I'm saying? Like that's a little odd. It's almost as if like he knows that he can't die, but hasn't actually experienced someone harming him in that way. It's just interesting. But it's like, well how would you know you can't die then?
I think that they know each other. I think that there was some kind of interaction before, because the shock on Summers' face when he got cut and he saw Scopper, it was like, oh, he knew to be on high alert with Scopper around, right? And so I think that a part of me feels like they've had some kind of altercation before, or another God's Knight, right? Right? Okay, fair enough.
The God Valley incident, right? Because like Roger was there, he was there with his crew. We can assume, and we don't know how long the Gods Knights have, like, particular ones have been alive, because obviously we had Garling, who has since aged, right?
Yeah.
So we know that they were probably in contact. So you're right. I think there is an argument to be made that they have encountered each other before, and obviously Summers has been intimidated by Scopper before and knows that he's a powerful figure.
You actually just kind of threw me with Garling, because we see the flashback and we see a young Garling.
Yes.
And at the same time, Emu's supposed to have been the one sitting on the empty throne for as long as it's been empty.
Yes.
And I would imagine that Garling didn't just. Well, I mean,
Well, I don't know.
actually, he did. He did.
He's still.
I'm sorry.
No, here's the thing. Garling had children, right?
Yeah, but
he
remember,
has
Garling
Shamrock
wasn't
and
an
he has
Elder Star
Shanks.
until just recently.
Yes.
So that was on me.
No, but what we're
Fair.
talking about. No, but we're talking about like, well, how are regular God's Knights then? Maybe they age, maybe they don't, but they're immortal clearly.
Yeah.
And
Well, no, but that's what I'm saying.
Garling
I think
was a God's Knight, so I think maybe. Are you trying to say that the lack of aging is part of being a God's Knight? Or are you saying that it's not a part of it?
That's what I was thinking. I mean,
It's hard to tell because of Gunko. She should be old.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
But maybe it's because she is this
Before-
like special, vessel or something. Maybe it's that argument.
that is an argument to be had too. And I guess I was kind of forgetting or conflating the whole God's Knights thing because I kind of forgot Garling was a God's Knight before becoming an Elder Star.
Yeah.
And so I think the monkey wrench is the God's Knights having this immortal power, right? And so with this context, it's making me feel as though this was a decisive move by Emu in the late stage, right? Like, this is making me think that God's Knights have existed, yes, but they didn't always have immortality, or it's something that is bestowed temporarily
Well,
during important missions.
let's say this. Like, we know that Killing Him and Summers have the tattoos for usage of the Abyss. We also know that Gunko doesn't. So maybe that has something to do with like her unique status as like they all seem to be immortal. She seems to be incapable of aging based on this, kind of insinuation that she knew Brooke at some point in time. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. I'm actually starting to lean more into she is this kind of special vessel, whatever, for Emu.
Yeah.
I think that's maybe becoming a little bit more clear.
Yeah, especially because Grand Line Review pointed that out in his recent chapter review as well, that he believes that Gunko was present in the throne room when King Nefeltari got because it was an arrow that pierced him. And so that's an interesting take. And I think that leads me to believe, like, okay, maybe Gunko is a primary vessel for Emu, right? And, we're still uncertain about
We need to see a black
origins
arrow
of
from
Emu.
her right now. Now that she's possessed,
Right.
we
right.
need to see an arrow that is black. And I think that we will see that. And I think to your point, like that will lend itself to her being the person who pulled the trigger on
Well,
Vivi's dad.
not her, but Emu through her, right?
Well,
and
yeah.
so I think we're still trying to ascertain what Emu is in general, right? And if Gunko shows that black arrow, right?
Yeah.
Then it gives credence, it gives leeway to believe that she was the vessel for Emu while in that throne room. And if that is the case, then maybe we can assume that she's the primary vessel for Emu, maybe the only vessel, right? We don't know
It's
if
so
Emu
confusing,
can
though.
actually have multiple,
Yeah.
like what she's doing is effectively like transmitting her consciousness into the vessel of Gunko, potentially, or she's just genuinely inhabiting it, right? We don't know if Emu has the ability to actually do that to any other individual, right?
One thing else, because I mean I agree with you. I think the only thing that's kind of like making me scratch my head literally is the 5 Elder Stars were in the room at the time and like morph into these demonic kind of shadow creatures that seem to be able to move across the floor, right? And I'm not saying that I'm not necessarily using that to discount the fact that it could have been a possessed Gunko. I am just saying it does kind of muddy the waters where it's like, who actually killed Cobra because you did have 5 Elder Stars that were on the attack. You get what I'm saying? It doesn't really matter. I mean, we'll see. If we see a black arrow from Gunko, I think that will lend itself to the idea that a possessed Gunko was in the throne room to kill Cobra. But it is, I don't know, it's just kind of interesting. I mean, maybe this is good writing, but like there's a lot of questions being brought up
Yeah.
that we'll definitely need clean answers to in the future.
Yeah, for sure.
One thing that I want to just point out on a light note is, can we just be honest and say that Rayleigh and Scopper and Roger are Pirate King Papis? I'm gonna just
Pirate
put
King
that out there.
Papis.
You heard it here first. Pirate King Papis. If you hear it anywhere else, they copied us.
Need to
Pirate
put it
King
on a shirt.
Papis. Yes. And the reason I say that is because they all seem to be dating young hotties and they're old. Like seriously, like Rayleigh is with I forget her name. What is her name?
It was on the tip of my tongue.
Shirley, I think.
No, not Shirley.
No, it's not Shirley. Who is it? Okay, I'm gonna look it up. But anyways,
Yeah.
okay, so obviously we have Scopper with Ripley. Roger had his little pink-haired
Shockey?
pork ass. Thank you, Shockey.
Was it Shockey?
I think it is
Okay.
Shockey. He had his little pink-haired pork ass boo, right? That was able to defy. Like she like kept Ace in the womb for like 13 months or some crazy stuff like that. It was nuts. But like,
Yeah.
yes, I mean these are old guys that are basically pulling young tings, and they need to have respect put on their name because, I mean, they're like 50 years old in the world of One Piece, you know, just slamming and bamming.
I mean,
you know, having
technically-
kids and stuff.
Technically, Scopper's got him a cougar.
I mean, is she older than him? She's older than him, right?
I think she's older than him.
Yeah, but she's got a young woman's. She's got a young woman's frame.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, young woman
nah,
appetites.
That's hilarious. But okay, so speaking of Scopper, right? Like complete 180 that we got in this chapter. He showed up very strong.
Yes.
Dealt with Summers and then was ready to save Colin. We love Colin. I'm excited for him, but also at the same time, Colin, you gotta know
Yes.
when to keep your mouth shut. Goodness gracious.
He really blew the plan immediately.
Really blew the plan out. And so with him revealing that Scopper is his father, immediately got Gunko on his tail. That's where we got that scene where Scopper really has to decide whether or not he can save the library or his son. And that's when we see him use Future Sight to witness that Gunko is not only making a threat, she was actually going to kill Colin.
Yes.
And so that caused him to throw up the white flag, and he got hit with about 2 or 3 arrows and started to fall. It looks like he might actually fall all the way down to the underworld, but what we did see and what I loved to see, right, is Chopper. Like, actually,
Yes.
like, noticing, for one,
Yes.
the power that he used to subdue Summers. He's like, whoa, what's that about? We have to know what that is in order for us to overcome this situation, and I'm going to go speak to Scopper or find out what that is ASAP. So I loved to see that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, I am glad that Oda gave Chopper something to do, something useful, something helpful.
Purpose.
I mean, we talked about this earlier, guys, but like, Mr. Waterford, you made a solid point. I'll let you obviously expound upon it, but like, what we think will happen with Scopper, obviously Scopper's not going to die. Grand Line Review, and we keep referencing Grand Line Review because obviously he's the biggest One Piece YouTuber and we are fans of his content.
Yeah,
he made a
sure.
point that he thinks that Scopper maybe might fall into the underworld in order to kind of alert the crew. I don't think that's going to happen. Like basically, you know, Zoro, Sanji, Monster Trio down there. I think differently. And Mr. Waterfree, I mean, you made the point. I'll let you go ahead and expound upon it.
Oh, yeah, no worries. I mean, I think that there is a possibility that he does fall all the way down there. And I think with Chopper racing after him, right? Like, Chopper is his lifeline, right? Like, I think if it was just Scopper falling on his own, that's a long fall. He probably could have actually died from that. He would die. But with Chopper there, Chopper and Scopper, oh, that's a nice little duo.
Ooh,
Chopper,
also Sanji and Scopper are going to meet. I like where this is going.
Potentially, yeah. So Chopper, right, we know has guard point. So he can be falling. He could have dove down to try to save Scopper. Yes. And he can use guard point when they reach the bottom to effectively save them both. Yes. And so I think that gives credence to what's happening here. Apparently, that's my favorite word this episode, but I'm going to run with it.
Credence. Was it Credence Clearwater Band or whatever?
It's hilarious,
okay,
right?
Go ahead.
And so, you know, with him falling down there, it also gives us the avenue for how we get a word down to the monster trio and Loki and, the other new giant pirates. And so I think that this is the most plausible way that we get them on high alert and involved in what's happening up above. And it gives Chopper that opportunity to, connect with Scopper to get that information. And they will likely be in the vicinity of those who can best utilize that information. Because even if Chopper learned that, like the exact trick that he used to overcome Summers while they were up top, almost nobody up there could have been able to implement what Scopper would have had to tell Chopper. So,
I mean, that's a really good point. I mean, I hope that it is some kind of trick that is able to be utilized by the Straw Hats that doesn't involve hockey, even though I'm fairly positive it does. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I actually hope that he doesn't go to the underworld. I think everything that you just said sounds really great. I think it's great plotting. But I just want to see the other Straw Hats do something. And like we got it briefly, and now they're right back out of the equation. I'm actually really thankful to Oda in the sense of I think the way that he removed Scopper from the story was very well written, because it showed Scopper is not someone to play around with. He's extremely strong and kind of ruthless, right? Like if it's like you or him or you and his family, it's going to be his family. Like it's not going to be you, right? So
no conversations about it. Just
seeing him just like rush through, literally dismantle Summers, and then be ready to go after Gunko, and then be ready after that to go save. Like it was just incredible. I mean, it was truly a one-punch moment, and I actually mean that in the best way possible. But that being said, you can't keep him in the story because he's too strong. He's too powerful. You actually need to remove him and do so in a way that, one, doesn't kill him because you need him. He's obviously a big character. But two, does it in a way where he is, at the very least, temporarily sidelined because he's sustained serious damage. And obviously he does. So I think you're right. I do see Chopper bandaging him. I don't think it's going to be healing him and then no one heals in One Piece that quickly except for
not right back in the fight.
Zoro maybe and Wano, and even then he was still in a body cast for a little bit.
Drugs.
Yeah, so it's like it's going to be a little while. That's fine. Probably not until the end of the arc, but Chopper
effectively sidelined.
Yeah, Chopper will get information from him, be able to communicate that to the rest of the crew. That means Chopper is gonna ultimately get some like nice moments, which is great. I'm glad that Oda's given him something to do. We'll see about Usopp and the rest of the crew. Usopp really does need to get a moment. It's just I know he's gonna get some kind of feat, but I don't know if it's gonna be big enough or I mean, forget about what he actually does. It just plot wise has to work for his arc. Something so substantial that really kind of like brings him back into the spotlight in a meaningful way, right?
Yeah.
Because all these moments where it's like, even him in Dressrosa where he's held up, it's kind of weird because it's undercut by he just ran and left his crew member behind. Like, it kind of doesn't matter what he does after. It's like, that's the choice you made at like a critical moment. You left Robin of all people, like to her own devices. That's crazy. And it's like, you can show us observation hockey. You can have him basically be redeemed through all the previous people who were turned into toys by, was it Sugar? Doesn't matter. It's like, dude, you were a coward post time skip in a critical moment, and more specifically, you abandoned your crew. So we need to see something that is like clean and clear and like a true moment of bravery that like comes not necessarily at a cost, but with significant risk.
With significant risk and is a moment that is full circle for his character arc, right? Because, I mean, again, the point I was making before, it's unfortunately possibly the case that we don't see that, right? Because of the trend that we have seen Oda take thus far, right?
Looks like it's going to be Brooke.
The boat. It's going to be Brooke, and it might be Frankie, right? Because Frankie's gotten some limelight in this arc, too, that was kind of unexpected. But if all willing, like we're hoping that we can see a major moment with Usopp, I agree with you that oftentimes he undercuts himself severely with his cowardice. And this would be the arc for him to actually show up and be courageous, right?
And
And just
honestly,
take the moment and the risk.
get a power up too. He should
I
get a
would love
power up.
that.
Okay, one
Yeah.
thing that I will say, and this is we don't have to talk about this very long. I just want to point this out, which you made this point earlier about like subverting expectations in terms of who gets focuses on arcs.
Yeah.
Everybody can kind of agree Fishman Island's a pretty weak arc. It's a comeback arc. It's kind of like a showcase
Yeah.
arc. It's an exhibition. You
Yeah.
get to see what the crew can do. You get to see their new character designs, whatever. But the villain's not very
Yeah.
serious, and it doesn't really have very much impact on the story as a whole.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen that be a Nami arc. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
I would have loved
Right.
to have seen
Yeah.
some focus on like Nami specifically taking
Yeah.
on the cause of basically Princess or Queen, I think it's Otahime or something like that,
Yeah, yeah.
who wanted to improve relations between fishmen and humans. Specifically
That would've
because of
been nice.
Nami's backstory, in which she was basically like terrorized and held
sure.
captive by a rogue crew of fishermen pirates. Like,
For sure.
and obviously we get this moment where she forgives Hachan, and it's great. And you know she has this moment with Jinbei, who apologizes to her because he failed to stop or see the
Yeah.
threat of Arlong. I would have just loved to have seen a little bit more focus on Nami in that moment or in that arc,
Yeah.
in which she moved a little bit more, to not care about money for like a second and to like really kind of adopt and care about this particular cause, which still is like, I mean, because the minks are hidden, the fishermen are like outright discriminated against, and like it would have just been nice to see some kind of development in that way, because ultimately it would have moved the needle in terms of, I guess, a theme of forgiveness, right, and reconciliation, particularly given
agree with that.
I mean, I know I keep saying particularly specific, whatever, right, but like
Yeah, good.
Fisher Tiger died hating humans.
For that cause. Yeah.
He hated
yeah.
humans, right? Like he obviously freed them, but like he was just distraught at the fact that he couldn't
Conflicted.
forgive them, right?
Yeah.
It would have been nice because you have these kind of themes about reconciliation and forgiveness, and the moment of like Luffy basically getting blood, or I think he's getting blood from Jinbei. I would have liked to have seen more from Nami, because if anybody had a dog in that fight, it would have been Nami.
Yeah, it would have been Nami.
So that's all I'm going to
For
say. I
sure.
think that there are, like, I love Oda. Obviously, he's telling a great story. I think he's probably the best writer on the planet right now.
For sure.
But I
and
think
the
there
numbers
are,
show.
yes. But I think there are missed opportunities, and I think everybody who's a fan can agree that, like, sometimes there are characters who just don't get their moment in the perfectly set up arc that feels like the springboard for that.
Right, right. And I absolutely agree. And I also feel like it's an unnecessary subversion, right? Where it's like it at this point it feels like an intentional one, right? Because it's
Yes.
happening almost every single arc. We see, oh, here's the perfect alley-oop, here's the perfect setup, and
Yes.
it's missed, and it's gone, right?
Yes.
And so it feels intentional, but it's also it feels
it's
like
like,
an
why?
unnecessary subvert. Right. It's like why miss that one?
Why
right?
not
Like,
give Usopp his moment in Elbaf? Why not?
Yeah.
And obviously we haven't seen it yet, but like, why not give Frankie his moment in Egghead? Like,
Yeah,
a chance to interact with Vegapunk
Yeah.
and express like, I literally spent 2 years studying your research. Like, I am a huge fan. You're a genius. Like,
Yeah.
I want to learn as much as I can from you. Anything, but we don't get that. Ultimately, we get kind of
Yeah.
this body story, but whatever.
Yeah. And I feel like even if we were to get that kind of moment, I feel like if it was due in Elbaf, it was due before the major conflict. Because things popped off quite quickly here in Elbaf. Like the fact that we are seeing Gunko
Yeah.
possessed by Emu right now in Elbaf, it's like, yo, is this the culmination of what's happening in Elbaf? Like that's a major
Yeah.
climax. It is a climactic moment for Elbaf. And so I'm definitely intrigued to know how much more we have to go inside of Elbaf with such a pivotal moment happening right now.
Yeah, and just to kind of add one more thing about like the pickups, it is kind of odd that like we're kind of getting this Frankie moment with Vegapunk in Elbaf.
Right. And exactly,
You know what I
right?
mean?
It's exactly what.
It's like why?
Yeah.
Why are we doing this like
Yeah.
weird pickup thing where it's like the next arc, that's when you're
The
you know what I
yeah.
mean? It's fine. It's
It's a
fine. It's
trope at this
still
point.
extremely entertaining and interesting, and I literally wait on bated breath for these chapters, but it is one of
For
those things
sure.
where it's like why just why are we
Yeah, I
like
know, right?
picking up the next arc to like have this moment that like clearly feels out of place at this point.
For sure.
Any other thoughts on the
Hmm.
chapter? I mean, you can do
Yeah.
predictions, you can do any other thing we talked about. What you got?
Yeah. Gave a couple of my predictions a moment ago about
Mm,
like I think Chopper will save Scopper with like a guard point or something, and they'll reach the underworld and
sure.
likely end up connecting with the monster trio and Loki and the new giant pirates. I think that we will have a moment next chapter where Brooke reveals a little bit more about the connection with Gunko, right? But maybe not too much.
Yeah.
Um, I am kind of floored. I wasn't expecting Emu to show up in this way in this chapter, so that kind of was a monkey
Yeah.
wrench I was not
Shout out
expecting.
Oda. Like the story is still
Yeah,
like hard to predict. Like
yeah,
truly.
for
Yeah.
sure,
But go ahead.
for sure. But I will say that I think that there's going to be something that shows us a small reprieve with the
Mm,
whole library situation, right? And that might look like the Straw Hats being freed and somebody is able to get to the library being burnt down. But like, if the library is actually burnt down, that's going to be heartbreaking. I'm going to be hurt
yeah.
by that for real.
And that's the thing. It's like you have killing him right there. So it's like you need somebody who's strong who can actually intervene and
Yeah,
hold their own without knowing how to defeat killing him. Right. I mean, we'll
yeah,
see.
for
It's
sure.
very difficult to predict. But
Hmm.
maybe we'll like leave that moment and then focus on other moments. And maybe that moment is
Right,
going to be
right.
the underworld. Right.
Yeah. And to your point as
Yeah.
well, is like, it's easy to fall down, but it's hard to get back up. So even if Scopper gets to the monster trio and
Yeah.
Loki and all of them, it's still going to take them some time to get back up there. And
Mm,
so I think that we might still see a moment where the remaining Straw Hats at the top have to
mm.
contend with the situation, with Emu revealing themselves, Scopper not being there. Like, that's a whole scenario. So,
Yeah. And, you add in like the fire and Mary Joie and like, what does that mean in terms of priorities? It's just interesting. You don't even know if like,
yeah,
and not to mention this again, but Grand Line View actually mentioned this. We don't even know if Evil's going to stick around. It might
true.
just be a recall. I mean, I doubt it, but maybe we'll
Mm.
see. Yeah, I'm going to actually refrain from any kind of predictions this time. I have no
Okay.
idea where the story is going. I just think that if I were just to do a temperature check, I feel like we have now established just enough threat and just enough danger, and specifically, removing Scopper from the story to activate our main crew vis-a-vis the Monster Trio plus Loki. So I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
we might get something like that at the end of next chapter, but we'll see. That being said, I'm trying to think anything else. Pirate King Papis. It's been real. We're gonna make that a thing.
Pirate King Papis.
Yes.
Real talk.
All right, we'll be back next week. We got a fun video for you guys coming out. Like, comment, subscribe, share this with your friends. We like to talk stuff and drop us a comment, all that stuff. All right, everybody. Cool.
All right,
Have a good
y'all.
weekend.
Peace and blessings. I walked 70 minutes. I maybe made it like almost 1.8, 1.9 miles. So we
Very
did good
nice.
today.
Very nice. All right, brother.
All
Until
right,
next
y'all.
time.
Peace and blessings. See you next time.